Another top 5 battle won for Ohio State. Now it's time for war. That's Zach Boren. I know he is always ready for the rivalry, the biggest game in all of the college football season. It's a Boren Blitz. It's Monday. We're getting ready for that. I'm Austin Ward. It's the Podcast Daily. Before we can get to the rivalry, Zach, well, I don't know. What's your vibe right now? How are you feeling?
I don't, Austin. I'm wearing. That side, right? I'm wearing my military Ohio State shirt. I'm freaking ready for war already. I'm ready to rock. I mean, I was in the stadium yesterday, and as soon as the clocks turned zero, literally, besides the great Signetti little homage, on the scoreboard, the countdown clock went directly to noon on Saturday, and everyone knows what time it is. The state of Ohio knows what time it is. People in the stadium were literally just chomping at the bit for that game to get here because they want it so bad. And you saw the players as well afterwards, right? They were like, hey, it's top 5 win. We basically put a stamp on our playoff moving forward, right? Of being in it. We want Michigan, though. We want that team up north. And you saw that in post-game interviews.
Yeah, and I think they also want it now because they're playing really good football, Zach. Indiana, well coached. We talked about it. The talent level was going to be not quite the same from the Hoosiers, but they were 10-0. This was a playoff game. Indiana was playing for their life. It was a eliminator for the Big Ten championship race in a lot of respects. And Ohio State answered the bell with one of their better performances. Was it immediately bursting out of the gate and bearing Indiana? No, because Ohio State seems to just play at a slower tempo to start games. But once they found their footing again, all 3 phases, which we can finally say, impacting a huge win over a top 5 team. Caleb Downs is special. Cody Simon, what a performance. Will Howard doing incredible things. I don't even know where to begin, Zach. That was a complete team effort to get that win.
We talked about it all last week leading up to this game, is that you want to be the best team in the country at the end of the year, right? You want to be playing the best ball. And you look at some of these teams previously in the year, and we've already brought up, Oregon, Texas. You obviously see the debacle that happened in the SEC yesterday.
Right.
Ohio State is literally on a rocket ship going up with playing their best ball and everything coming together. They've been gritty with some wins this year, and they haven't been perfect. There's been so many bright spots, but for them to put a complete game together, which is what they did on Saturday, and then to be able to go into this week being Michigan week, it's time for war week, and then a possible Big Ten championship in the playoff. This is the best time to be peaking. And in my opinion, on Saturday, it was the most complete performance we've seen all year. You said, you obviously mentioned it. It wasn't clean in the first quarter. It was a dogfight in the first quarter. There were definitely things that they could have capitalized on more and executed better at. But in my opinion, that was as complete of a game as you can get. I mean, Indiana was a good football team. I talked to some of the Ohio State coaches last week leading up to the football game. They said Indiana was very good. Like when they give that kind of compliment and the coaches within the facility are like, these guys are going to give us a battle. They took that team for real, and you saw what they were able to do. A 38-14 victory, dominating the entire game. I mean, man, as a Buckeye fan, you have to be excited for that performance.
Yeah, and I think, look, Ryan Day's mentioned this before, and it's not to wave it off or dismiss any. If people have concerns about slow starts, I get it. I've watched it. I've sort of come to accept it as a fact of life that Ohio State is content to treat these as 12-round heavyweight fights. And if you have to throw some jabs in the early rounds and feel it out, they're okay with that because they feel like the longer that they take you into a fight, the deeper water that they drag you into, the less likely you are to be able to withstand their level of talent, their ability to adjust with the coaching staff, the veteran presence that they have to not get rattled if they don't play perfectly early on. Yep, the defense gave up a long drive and a touchdown. The offense failed to execute in some red zone situations that we don't generally see them do that. They had a turnover down there with the drop from Jelani Thurman that was caught. A heck of a play by Indiana. You also tip your hat sometimes to opponents that the old coaching cliche that they have scholarships too, and Curt Signetti has done a very good job. But once Ohio State is done with the feeling out process, you just had this sense, or I did, and I'm sure that you did in the shoe as well, that all right, they're about to step on Indiana's throat and put this game away. I didn't know that it was going to come with a Caleb Downs punt return to do that. But even before that, at the end of the second quarter, once the defense was getting those string of stops and you felt Will Howard finding more confidence and Emeka Ibuka making some plays, it was like, all right, this game is over.
You could totally feel it. It was almost like one of those things where, you're the slap war thing that's huge, right? And it's like Ohio State was just waiting, like, give us your biggest punch, give us your haymaker. They literally took it and said, okay, now guess what? We get to fight back, and we're coming and we're going to show you exactly who we are. And that's exactly what happened. You talked about that first drive that Indiana had on offense completely. Ohio State's 3-and-out. You definitely don't want to start a game like that. But Indiana did a lot of different things that Ohio State hasn't seen this year, with all of the stems, the undersized defensive linemen that do a lot of twists and X games and things of that. Like, there were a lot of things that Ohio State had to almost see in real time and make adjustments, and you saw that happen. And then Ohio State just came out throwing haymakers. I mean, the defense after that first drive was just locked down. You could just feel it. The offense started moving the ball. And yes, you talk about, the interception in the red zone, and Indiana made a play, right? It's not like it was a mistake by the Buckeyes. It wasn't poorly executed. Indiana made a play. They have scholarship players. They're going to be a top 10 team, in my opinion, come Tuesday night. They're still going to make the college football playoff. Good team. Then you see the big dogs for Ohio State take off, right? Caleb Downs, Will Howard. Like, you talk about Cody Simon. I was like, Cody Simon, is he playing defensive end today? Because he was in the backfield every single play, right? And so, Ryan Day, specifically after the Oregon game, was talking about how big-time players need to make big plays in big-time games. And those guys stepped up. Those big-time players were showing out. They did what they needed to do. Complete win. And we're going to kind of do the same thing on this show of that happened. You executed at a very high percentage. Now you shift that focus to the team up north, because this is a game that so many guys came back to. You could tell as that game went on, you could just feel the confidence and feel kind of the swagger building up in that team, knowing what was coming the following week. And then guess what? Game ended, and they all know, hey, we don't even want to talk about that. It's a top 5 matchup, and you don't even want to talk about it because your attention's going to a game that you haven't won now since 2019.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And Jack Sawyer, he walks into the post-game room on Saturday night, and he's like, hey, guys, I don't want to talk about this. All due respect to Indiana, top 5 win, all those other things. Like, he wants some pants. Like, he doesn't have a set of gold pants, which is just a crazy thing for so many of these guys where it became routine. So, but I do think that mentality, plus what you mentioned, like even during the fourth quarter and the way that Ohio State is carried. Let's take it back to Friday, Zach, when Ryan Day is on the Pat McAfee show, and he's
so happy you brought this up.
So are we. And, Will Howard's on the sideline, and people may not like it that Ohio State has discovered some swagger and that they might return the trash talk. But like, to me, that tells me this team is having fun. And that sounds like maybe a stupid thing to point to, but I have seen a lot of Ohio State teams over the years, especially when they're getting ready to turn the page to the war in the game, be super buttoned up, too professional, maybe too serious, too amped up. I think there's a good balance to have with that swagger on the sideline and that the brotherhood and enjoying being around each other. And it is coming, and you've asked for this, but in the past, it was 6-7 weeks ago that we were talking about what is this team's mentality like? Where is the leadership? What energy are they going to play with? The energy doesn't always have to be ripping somebody's head off. Sometimes it can be ripping somebody's head off and then laughing after you decapitated somebody, which is what they did on Saturday. I personally like it. And you could say, well, there's a risk to playing with that. Like, what if somebody makes you eat your words like they made Indiana do that on Saturday? I don't care. Like, if you're not enjoying the game, why are you playing it?
I could go on the longest tangent about what you just said.
Do it.
You don't have enough time for this show. We seriously don't. For all those people that are saying there shouldn't be trash talk, there shouldn't be that swagger, there shouldn't be, kind of any of that mocking when a team opens up their mouth. Complete BS. In the words of Anthony Schlegel, it's all gas, no brakes, right? When you are a legitimate football team, you look across the country. All those teams are talking trash. All those teams have a swagger about them. You and I have talked about it so much on the show, and that's what I think just infuriated me the past couple of years because the leaders on the past couple of years teams were so buttoned up, and it was like, we're going to take care of business. We're going to do it our way. Like this year's team, and you're starting to see Will Howard come into character. Like, no, talk trash, right? Like, be out there and be who you are. Have fun doing it. If a team's going to sit there and run their mouth all week, you make them eat your words, right? You show emotion on the field. Like, that's why I love the game of football. And for everyone, those traditionalists that are like, no, like you shouldn't be doing it. You don't understand the game of football. You've never played it once in your life. You've never been in a locker room. You've never actually been on a field in the 60 minutes of a football game. During those 60 minutes, if you have that confidence and that aura about you where you're sitting there, you're relaxed, talking trash, being who you are, telling that other team that you are going to bring it every single play, that's how you become a great football team. That's what you saw on Saturday. You're starting to see the swagger. You saw it against Penn State, right? That 4-minute drive where you saw the offensive line smacking each other on the back and hitting helmets. You started to see the star defensive players get in the offensive huddle. You started to see Will Howard and some of those offensive players get in the defensive huddle, right? Like you're starting to see those guys feed off of one another. That's what great teams do. And I could not be more excited for that to be now showing its face. I could not be more proud of Will Howard stepping up and kind of leading that charge. The swagger on this team is taken off. And when you have swagger, you are sitting there and you believe it, right? Like there's just that feeling. We talked about the stadium on Saturday. That stadium felt it. There was an energy in that stadium that we haven't seen in a long time. We could go on another tangent about the noise in the aura of Ohio Stadium, the games previously this year and possibly even last year, right? That stadium was loud on Saturday. That stadium had some swagger to it. That stadium knew what was coming, and the team's going to feed off of it. So I absolutely love it. Will Howard, what he said after the game, basically is like, hey, my attention's turned to the team up north, right? Like I'm doing this for all the Ryan Day haters out there. I'm doing this for, the Jack, the JTs, the Emecas, the Travions of the world who came back to beat that team. Like Will Howard gets it. Right. Yeah. Run your mouth, Will. Go tell them that's what you're doing, right? All those Ryan Day haters are gonna be eating crow after Ohio State dominates them this Saturday.
Yeah, the switch of like the way that Will Howard can lead in different ways, whether that was the putting out the cigarette on the sideline or then going upstairs and saying, hey, this is for the seniors that came back, and like appealing and thanking Buckeye Nation for the way that they showed up. Because that place was on fire Saturday, Zach. The Horseshoe was great. There's no other words. It was off the charts. And I think it's going to be probably 10 times bigger on Saturday because there is so much angst built up over this. As you said, 2019, that's a crazy amount of time to not have won in this rivalry, especially, everything else that's gone on. We don't even need to rehash all that, but kudos to the Ohio State fans for showing up. I know that they're frustrated that all these games have been at noon, but you get a top 5 matchup and the challenge comes out to show up. They did that. And, the team did too. They matched it. The energy does go hand in hand. So I assume that's going to carry over on Saturday.
There's a big difference between a team trying to go out and win a game or a team trying to go out for blood. Right. And I think you're starting to see this team pull that or make that switch of not just winning a game, but now we want to dominate people and we're out for blood. Like we want people to know that they're playing Ohio State. And that's that same energy that you talked about. And it's going to be so hard for people watching this that weren't at the game to understand that. But in that stadium, I haven't seen that stadium go that crazy in a long time. Caleb Downs' punt return, that place, it was shaking. I mean, it was absolutely insane. It erupted. You saw the sidelines the entire game. Like, this is a team who's now hungry. This is a team who now gets it. This is a team who's feeding off one another, and confidence and that swagger is so contagious.
Yeah, and they did get a little extra blood there in the last minute, punching in that touchdown, and it's been amusing to me, Zach. I don't know, because you and I have not talked about this yet. I don't know where you... I can guess because I've known you for a long time how you feel about it. But Indiana fans and media complaining about the late touchdown on the quarterback sneak from Will Howard after embracing a coach who said Ohio State sucks for no reason. What do you expect? And also the Hoosiers ran up the score in pretty much every opportunity they had throughout the duration of the year. They were throwing up by like 56-3 against an FCS team in September. All right, let's be careful, Indiana.
They won 77-3 against what? Eastern Illinois, not Eastern, Western Illinois, maybe. I think it was Western Illinois, whoever it was. Complete BS. If you want to play with the big dogs, guess what? You got to get in the ring with the big dogs, right? If that means, hey, we're going to put a touchdown on you at the end of the game. Sorry, got my dog going crazy over here too.
Dog's fired up.
The dog's fired up. If you are going to complain about that, you are. It's asinine, right? In my opinion, Travion should have scored. Like, Travion, put that damn thing in the end zone, right? And guess what? We're going to kick off, and I would hope Indiana will try and say, okay, we're not going to kneel it. We're going to come back at you. Like, if your coach is sitting there saying Purdue sucks, Michigan sucks, Ohio State sucks, and you're going over all these things, and your coach still to this day at Big Ten Media Day says, Google me. Your coach, in the bye week gets on ESPN and talks about how, we're not going to go to class. We're not partying this week. All we're doing is watching film so we can beat Ohio State. We're going into Columbus to win this game. And then we're scoring on you late and you want to complain? Come on. Like, it's a moot point. Even people are saying, oh, you could get players hurt. Screw that. Did you see Will Howard's celebration after he got that in? You're telling me Will Howard didn't want to score another touchdown? You're telling me that team didn't want to score another touchdown and put a nail in the coffin? That's that killer instinct that I'm talking about. That's what you want in this team. And I talked about that switch. I would say probably in years past, you're not doing that. But now, with the mindset that this team is starting to get, in the steamroll that they're starting to go in this peak, they're like, hey, listen, we want to kill everyone. And we're coming for you, and we're going to run up the score. It doesn't matter what.
It's possible, Zach, that, Ohio State wasn't trying to score on that drive. It wasn't like some exotic rush play to Travion Henderson. Maybe they could have tackled him and kept him far away from the 1-yard line and maybe not been in that situation. Maybe stop and play the game. Like, they were trying to win. They had just gone for a 2-point conversion and kicked onside. They weren't done. Like, what are we talking about?
What you took the words out of my mouth. I was literally just about to bring up. They don't want to talk about the onside kick. They don't want to talk about going for two. Like, you don't want to talk about any of those things, right? And then guess what? You want to complain when you kick the ball out of bounds on an onside kick, and then we run a run play and gash you right down the middle of the field. Like, what do you want to happen? So basically, you want to have your way and try and make it a game and keep the score closer because it helps you in the playoff. But then guess what? When we just run the ball right at you and you can't make a tackle, you want to complain. I don't understand it. I don't get it. You want to know something? Kurt Cignetti, after the game, didn't have any issues with it. So if your head coach isn't having any issues because he fully understands it, you shouldn't either.
Yeah, that's true. Opening up those holes, though, that revamped offensive line, Zach, and I think, first game without Seth McLaughlin, this ongoing transition, was it perfect? They're all going to grade out champions? Maybe not, but I thought if they petered out there in that red zone, they didn't get the push, but Will Howard had the time he needed to make throws. They did spring some plays in the rushing attack. I didn't look at them as a glaring weakness or problem. And Indiana could have. They, as you mentioned early in the show, they did a ton of stunts, games, blitzes to try and confuse Ohio State. It didn't work. I thought that was pretty good for all things considered.
Could not agree with you more. I thought Carson Hinsman stepped up, thought he played really well. For him not to snap the ball in a live game since what? Missouri, right? The Missouri game of last year. I mean, it's been a long time. So for him
Michigan
to be
game.
on
The Michigan game, he didn't play in the Cotton Bowl.
You're right. He didn't play in the Cotton Bowl. You're right. So the Michigan game, right? Almost 365 days. So for him to be on the same page as Will Howard, for that offensive line being out there and the first time starting together, I thought they did great. And we already talked about how much Indiana's defensive line tries playing different games, tries doing different things. You obviously saw Indiana's linebackers triggering. Like, they run a ton of stunts, run a ton of blitz packages. This offensive line was on the same page most of the day. To your point, are they all going to grade out champions? No. But guess what? They did exactly what they needed to do to win this football game. Give Will Howard enough time back there to make some passes. I don't know the exact stats, but I think ran to close to 100 yards or something like that. So guess what? Top 5 matchup against the number 3 ranked defense in the country coming into this game. In my opinion, they did a damn good job.
Pretty good. All right. It's that time. We are going to have a lot more with Zach this week, by the way, not just Buckeye Q, but Monday night later today. We will be at Fairway Columbus for the rivalry kickoff. So Zach and Mike Bennett will be there. We're going to be talking about the Buckeyes and the rivalry a lot.
We're going to be amped up.
We're ready. Yeah. We're not even waiting till Thursday because A, it's Thanksgiving, but B, it's what's better than a Monday night to go talk about Ohio State and Michigan. So we're going to get that. So you can stick around and come out and join us. See Zach for that. But when we get to a Boren Blitz, the end of it, we got to have 3 and out. What do you got?
For sure. My number 3 is tied. We've talked about Will Howard and his leadership. I'm allowed to do this.
Okay? Yeah, you are.
It's week 11.
There are no rules.
There are no rules. Will Howard, the way he stepped up, led this football team. Why he, Mecca touched on it at the end of the game, why he's not in the Heisman Trophy consideration, at least an invite to New York City, is asinine as well. He led this team and did exactly what he needed to do for them to win this football game. And then tied for number 3 is Emeka Egbuka, right? Big time players make big plays in big time games. Mecca, I think 7 catches for 80 yards. That touchdown in the corner of the end zone, that throw and catch. Oh my God. Again, for people who were there, you were like, wow. People seeing it on TV, I don't know. I haven't watched TV copy, so I don't know what it looked like. That throw and catch was as good as it gets. Good as it gets. Number 2, Cody Simon. Man, I mean, 2.5 sacks, strip sack at that. I think 9 tackles, 10 tackles. 10 tackles. There you go. The dude balled out. He took over the middle of that defense. Knew Indiana was going to try and run the football. They brought pressure from left, right, middle, wherever it was, and he was having a heyday. He is one of the main reasons why this defense, just after that first drive, just stifled Indiana all day long, and they could not do anything. And then number 1's got to be Caleb Downs, right? What's crazy is, and this is the crazy part, he could be, actually not could be, he is one of the top 5 players in all of college football. And we don't even talk about him as much as we should, let alone Ohio State fans in the program or media or the national media. Like, he's starting to gain the recognition, I should say, with some of those awards as he should. Mm-hmm. But this dude is like unbelievable for how good he plays. And you saw him take over the game again on Saturday. When Ohio State needed a big play, guess what? This dude takes a punt, 79 yards to the house. First one we've had since 2014, 10 years, right? Yep. And he absolutely lit up Ohio Stadium. That was the turning point of this game. He was unbelievable on defense as well. I think 5 tackles, was constant at the line of scrimmage, making plays. The dude is the real deal. And I know Ryan Day and this coaching staff is looking at Caleb Downs right now like, dude, that's why we went and got you, right? Like, you just had your marquee moment in Ohio State lore, but now you need to build on that, right? Now we're going into Michigan week, your first ever one, and now we're going to rely on you even more to step up and lead that defense and be that dude. And then as things go on, hopefully in the Big Ten championship game, right? Hopefully against Oregon, he's going to be a massive factor for that defense. And then you get in the playoff, Caleb Downs is going to be a guy that they rely on mightily.
Yep. Gonna be fun to see what he can do in the game on Saturday noon in the Horseshoe. It is finally here. Last week of the regular season, best rivalry in all of sports. I know we're fired up on the podcast. We will be, as I mentioned, at the Fairway for the Bryant Heating and Cooling Systems rivalry kickoff later tonight. But thanks for getting the week started right here with us with a little Boren Blitz on the podcast daily. He is Zach. I am Austin. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.